Another sleepless night for Ukrainians. The country's leader says that Russia launched 400 drones and a missile in overnight attacks.
Now, the president is defending his decision to give Russia 50 days to make peace or face tariffs and secondary sanctions. Russian officials say they aren't worried about that threat, though.
50 days? It used to be 24 hours. It used to be 100 days. We've been through all of this.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. I am embarrassed to say this as an American and as a veteran, but I think that Russia's foreign minister understands Donald Trump better than most Americans do, certainly better than most of our media organizations do. In the last few weeks, Russia has unleashed a massive wave of attacks against Ukraine, targeting civilians. I was there during one of the largest of these attacks. The drones are aimed at schools, hospitals, apartment complexes. I visited one of those targeted neighborhoods and spoke to residents who just hours earlier had been the victims of one of Putin's terror attacks. And while I prefer the Trump administration's recent skepticism towards Putin, I've observed Donald Trump long enough to know that his word about imposing sanctions in 50 days is about as good as Putin's word, and the Russian foreign minister knows that. Besides, why give Vladimir Putin another 50 days while he continues to slaughter innocent civilians? I talked to America's former ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget Brink, about what is happening right now. This is an incredibly illuminating conversation, and I've split it into two parts. The second one is out tomorrow. And I'm headed back to Ukraine soon, reporting for this network. If you want to support that mission, subscribe to my Substack page. I'll be posting regular updates there as well. The link is below. Here's part one of my conversation with Ambassador Bridget Brink. Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. My guest today is Ambassador Bridget Brink, who served in Ukraine, was there during the opening phases of Putin's unprovoked aggression against that country, helped build the coalition that kept Ukraine in the fight and helped provide the weapons that pushed back the second largest army in the world. I now think they're being described as the second most powerful army in Ukraine because Ukraine is winning this fight. And you know that as well as anyone. I've been to Ukraine many times and have seen it up close. Bridget is also running for Congress in Michigan's 7th Congressional District. We'll get to that as well. But give us the snapshot of the current state of affairs in Ukraine, because it seems like almost every night we're hearing about another massive wave of drone and missile attacks that are targeting cities. They're targeting hospitals and power plants and daycare centers. This is something that always touches American audiences, but they just hit a stable in Odessa and killed horses. I know that pales in comparison to the toll on the human population, but we have to paint that picture for Americans about what Putin is doing to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Ken. Thanks so much for having me on. Well, this is exactly why I stood up to the Trump administration and quit my job as U.S. ambassador in Ukraine, because I believed that what we were doing in terms of showing or not showing peace through strength was a problem for us. I could not stand by while we would appease Putin. But what's happening there in Ukraine, as you describe, is just truly horrific. It is violence on a scale that we have not seen since World War II. And that's violence to children. Just recently, as you described, the drone attacks have increased exponentially against Ukraine and continue to do so, even after the last call between President Trump and Putin last week. And it hit and killed a young toddler in the backyard, a family backyard. I saw this over and over again, where children, civilians, women, people minding their own business, sleeping in their beds, living their lives, are being killed in this wanton aggression that Putin is waging against Ukraine. And I just want to say that, as 3 years as the head diplomat coordinating all of our policy in Ukraine on the ground, we enabled the Ukrainians to accomplish a lot. And that's because they have an incredible fighting spirit and capability. And what we were able to do essentially was to help keep Ukraine free, as you said, against the second largest army in the world after ours. also deter Russia and Putin from doing more and send the right signal to China. And that's what we need to continue to do. My strong advice is that we continue to arm Ukraine, and that will also benefit the United States, because what we've seen from this war is that our defense industrial base is truly lacking, and we need to add more and do more to build it up and to show our strength and to be the strong power we must be in the world, but also to get at the $300 billion in Russian sovereign assets that's sitting in Europe that can also be used to buy U.S. weapons, create U.S. jobs, also to support the industrial base in Europe and in Ukraine itself. And finally, we need to really put the sanctions on. And this is where the bill that sits in Congress, the one that is being driven by Senators Graham and Blumenthal, is actually exactly the right move we need to make. But it should be strong and should be clear. We need to show Putin that we, the United States, together with our partners in the world, are not going to allow him to take a country of 40 million people by force, pure and simple, because it is in our interest to do so. I do not think his goals end at Ukraine. I think they're much broader. And I think the consequences of him and Putin prevailing are absolutely devastating for Europe and for the United States.
Hey, it's Ken Harbaugh. Quick break to say thank you to everyone who's been following and supporting this show and this channel. None of it happens without you. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my Substack page, I'd really appreciate the follow. It's a great way to make sure you never miss an episode. It's free to sign up. And if you're able to pitch in a few bucks, every dollar goes back into the show. Just search for The Ken Harbaugh Show on Substack or click the link below. Thanks. Well, let's talk about those broader implications. You referenced sending a signal to China. The stakes in Ukraine go beyond, obviously, Ukraine. They even go beyond the Baltics and the other countries that might fall if Putin has his way with Ukraine. It extends to the other side of the world, to Taiwan. Yes. Explain to us why Ukraine's fight is the fight for democracy globally.
Well, it's simple. I think Russia and Putin and his partners around the world are seeking to show that a different model of governance is more powerful than democracy. And that's why he's teamed up with Iran. These drones that are coming to Ukraine at this exponentially increasing level a lot of them are Shaheds from Iran, as well as China. A lot of the materials that are going into the defense industrial base in Russia are coming also from China. And finally, North Korea, which has provided not only ballistic missiles, those missiles are very hard to defend against, with the exception of using a Patriot battery and missiles, as well as people. And this is an alliance that is not in our interest. And we must show that this is one, together with the Europeans, that cannot determine the borders of Europe by force. We have seen this before. We have seen this in World War II. It is not something that should be repeated. And I also believe that Putin is trying to show that the values that came out of World War II, fighting for freedom, fighting for democracy, are ones that he is trying to destroy. And our job is to show and explain that the alliances and the values that came out of World War II are the ones that have made us strong. That is what has helped America be and remain the strongest power in the world. And so it's very important for us to continue to fight for it at home and abroad.
How do you explain the hesitation of the Trump administration, and maybe it's just functionaries in the Pentagon, the Elbridge Colbys of the world, to send defensive weapons, Patriot batteries and replacement missiles to Ukraine as the ballistic missiles are raining down on Ukrainian cities?
I can't explain it. I think there's a simple answer to a situation where we find ourselves that we, if it's true, don't have enough Patriot missiles to be able to send to Ukraine or use anywhere else around the world. We better regenerate our own defense industrial base. I saw that personally when I was the ambassador to Ukraine, that we were running low in certain areas. And I believe we should use all of our power to also rejuvenate that base internally. It would also be very good for the U.S. economy and U.S. jobs, in addition to being very important to ensuring our own strength and power at home and around the world.
Well, I also don't buy the argument that we don't have enough, in the sense that Patriot missiles are designed to shoot down Russian ballistic missiles, and I would much rather them be shooting down Russian ballistic missiles over Ukraine than over an American city or an American base overseas. I mean, that is the front lines of this new, what I think is a global war. I mean, it's kinetic in Ukraine, but you have alluded in some of your writings and talks about Russia's non-kinetic attacks around the world. Their attacks on our elections. I mean, they have actually killed the dissidents in allied countries, in the capitals of allied countries. Can you talk about the very real threat that Russia poses right now to U.S. interests beyond the borders of Ukraine?
Well, you're 100% exactly right. So the kinetic war, the land war is happening in Ukraine. It's also happening in some other countries on Russia's periphery. But the primary land war right now that Putin is waging is against Ukraine. But this war is multidimensional. There's an information war that has been going on now for decades. And since I spent almost 30 years in this part of the world, I saw this firsthand, where part of Putin's plan and effort is to make people lose confidence in democracy, lose confidence in their government. People in Russia don't trust the government because the government lies. That's a real problem. That's a real problem for democracy. That's happening in Europe. That's happening to try to manipulate elections there in Europe. And we also know that happened here at home in America. In addition to an information war, there's also a war that's going on against in the cyber world. So cyber activity is at an all-time high. That is a huge danger, of course, to all of us, with the way in which most of our world now is done in some technological basis. And that's happening, and Russia is a key state sponsor of cyber war, both in Ukraine and in different parts around the world. And so it's happening on that level as well. There's the hybrid warfare, or different kinds of warfare that's going around killing dissidents or people who disagree. Even in Europe, we saw that happen in England and other parts of Europe. That is being carried out by Putin and his special services. This is terrifying that this is happening.
That was part one of my conversation with Ambassador Bridget Brink. Part two is out tomorrow. See you then.
New Midas merch drop. Check out the latest pro-democracy sticker packs, t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and more. All at store.MeidasTouch.com.